Five Nights at Freddy's. What is there that I could possibly say about this franchise that hasn't already been said by countless other creators online? Well, what about the fact that I think this franchise needs an animated film?
What?
Okay, hear me out, because honestly, I really think I'm onto something here. Seriously, being someone who is just so animation focused, I do often watch or engage with stuff that I think there is just so much potential with certain animated stories. And yes, I do actually think that there is a lot of potential for a Five Nights at Freddy's animated film. Why exactly though? Well, I think there's one animated trilogy that perfectly proves my theory. Yes, it's the animated trilogy so cool, it's actually hard to believe it belongs to the same franchise as this.
Third level, lots of luck. What? Like what did you say, Scoop?
Seriously, this trilogy, hell, the first movie in this trilogy, proves to me the idea that a Five Nights at Freddy's animated film could actually work. Like the Five Nights franchise, the Scooby-Doo franchise is something that is similarly large, dark, and full of a lot of potential for various stories. Back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, someone noticed this at Hanna-Barbera and set about taking advantage of all of that potential to create this perfect animated trilogy. Now, like the Scooby-Doo franchise, I believe that the same potential exists with the Five Nights franchise, especially in terms of story and character. And hey, even if you wanted to totally disregard one of the greatest animated trilogies ever made, the franchise itself would still be enough to prove the viability of a Five Nights animated film. This franchise is so full of just so many stories that perfectly match the tone of what could be a great animated film, that different characters and settings are basically perfect for an animated film. And hey, if for some reason you still don't believe me at all you've got to do is just take a look around at all the great animated content that has come out of the Five Nights community here on YouTube. Similar to how Game Jolt is full of so many great Five Nights fan games, YouTube is also full of so many great Five Nights fan animations. And I mean because, yes, of course it is. You can't do anything Five Nights at Freddy's related without the fan. Anyway, obligatory joke aside, fans from across the franchise have all taken advantage of the franchise's characters and stories to create fantastic animations. And I believe a Five Nights animated film could do the same, drawing on ideas and inspirations from across the franchise to create a unique story. Now, with all that said, what do I think a Five Nights animated film might look like? Well, personally, I'd of course like to see something inspired by the fusion of ideas from the first Five Nights film, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and of course, some of the ideas from the original games and books. In terms of animation specifically, I'd like to see something similar to what the Scooby-Doo franchise did, where we focus on the whole film being a 2D animated feature, largely because I'd just like this film to stand out a little bit more amongst everything else coming out. And I really think you could do that by having this film be animated in 2D. That way you can really push a lot of the expressions and the design elements. Although if you did want to have the film be something larger, then I guess you could do what all the other major studios do largely today, where this film is a 3D animated film. But still, I'd like to see some fusion of 2D elements just to really make this film stand out amongst everything else. Not just the fan animations online, but also a lot of the other visual elements from across the franchise, from those being within the original Five Nights film and then the original games. Now, in saying all of this, I'm sure that you might be thinking that this should probably be something like a Spider-Verse inspired film, but really I think that what Spider-Verse does works well for that movie, and Instead, for this film, I think that it should be something new and unique to this film. I think that this film should really try to experiment with putting together a new visual aesthetic that stands out amongst its contemporaries in the animation industry. Maybe it could be something like what the TMNT did just a couple years ago with their latest film, where they again tried to do a lot of new 2D elements within their 3D animated film, and they ended up creating a new visual aesthetic that was really quite perfectly suited for that film, with the whole mutation and everything else. So doing something similar to that in this film, where you could really play on a lot of the ideas of the horror aesthetic and how you could bring those ideas into this 3D animated film, could really be something quite interesting. And hey, at this point I think I've rambled for just about long enough. So what do I think that the actual story for this film could look like? Well, I'd probably say it would have to look something like this. But before we go any further ahead, I just want to give a quick shout out to Not Real Name Not At All, I think I got the name right, and just say that her videos have been a great inspiration for this video and have really helped me figure out a lot of what is just going on in this franchise, because of course nothing's simple in this franchise, and hey, that's going to continue here. So please enjoy. The story begins with Carlton Burke lying in bed, struggling with the same nightmare that he's always had for years now. Quick note here, yes, you are correct that this is the same Carlton Burke from the original book trilogy. However, in this story, he's going to start out as the main character, instead of just stealing that status from somebody else later on. Seriously, that book trilogy was weird, man. The sun rises and Carlton leaves his college campus. He's going home for the holidays. Carlton drives back to his hometown of Hurricane and moves back into his childhood bedroom, where his father, the chief of police, greets him and tells him that he won't be bored for too long. Luckily for Carlton, an old friend of his is still in town, a girl called Vanessa, who's up to meet Carlton for a drink later. Carlton thanks his dad, telling him that he'll think it over. Later that night, Carlton decides that he'd rather not hang around for family game night, and so he leaves to meet Vanessa at a small bar seemingly in the middle of nowhere. At the bar, Carlton meets and catches up with Vanessa, a girl he's known for a long time. The two have a good time, and in a surprise to Carlton, his old crush, Jeremy, appears. Side note again, yes, I know I'm being a little cheeky with the whole Jeremy thing, but honestly, I just thought that it was so funny that I couldn't pass up the opportunity to make this joke. Anyway, the three have a good time catching up and reminiscing about the past. But eventually the conversation shifts, and Vanessa makes a comment about some sort of past tragedy with an old friend called Charlie. The conversation stops abruptly, until Vanessa recognizes her mistake and starts it up again by saying that she's just got a new job as a security guard. Carlton and Jeremy look intrigued. Vanessa tells them all about the job, and then even offers them a tour of her workplace tomorrow night. Carlton seems hesitant at first, but then eventually realizes that he's back for the holidays and hasn't really got much planned. So, why not hang out with an old friend? Afterwards, the gang drink up and have a good time, before later on that night, Carlton struggles with the same nightmare. It's a nightmare of a young boy chased by monstrous animals. Carlton wakes up in a cold sweat and calms down, realizing that he's fine, and that really, he's not doing anything too interesting today, before he meets Vanessa later on that night for a tour of the Pizzaplex. And that, I think, is a good place to end this video. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please let me know what you think about all these ideas in the comments section. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.